The ancient weapon hung suspended in crystalline stasis, its obsidian frame pulsing with veins of amber energy. Commander Lyra Chen stood before the display case in the Zephyrian archive, her breath fogging the protective barrier despite the climate controls. "You cannot be serious," growled Warlord Thax, his 6 arms gesticulating wildly. The reptilian Zephyrian scales shifted from deep green to warning yellow. "That bow was crafted by the ancients for creatures 10 times your mass. The draw weight alone would snap your fragile bones like dried twigs." Lyra's fingers traced the security lock. Around them, the circular chamber hummed with the collective wisdom of 1,000 civilizations, but her focus remained fixed on the weapon that had remained untouched for 3 millennia. "The Devourers are 8 hours from breaching our final defensive line," she said quietly. "Every ship in the Allied fleet is either destroyed or crippled. This is our last option." Thax's throat sac inflated with agitation. "Your species has already sacrificed enough. 17 colony worlds evacuated, your entire military scattered across the sector. Why throw away more human lives on an impossible task?" The irony wasn't lost on her. 3 years ago, humanity had been the newcomers to the Galactic Alliance, barely worthy of a seat at the council table. Now, with the ancient enemy awakening from its slumber in the void between galaxies, Earth's children were the only ones still fighting. "Because someone has to," Lyra replied, inputting her command codes. The stasis field flickered and died. The moment her hands touched the bow, pain shot through her nervous system like liquid fire. The weapon was massive, nearly as tall as she was, and carved from what appeared to be a single piece of dark matter crystallized into physical form. Ancient runes crawled across its surface, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The inscription warns that only beings of sufficient mass and bone density can withstand its power. Thax translated, his voice heavy with concern. "Lyra, your people have already proven their courage beyond measure. Don't let pride—" "It's not pride." She lifted the bow, surprised by its perfect balance despite its obvious weight. "It's necessity." The weapon's energy signature synced with her biorhythms, and suddenly she could feel its history flowing through her consciousness. Created by the Forerunners during the last Great War against the Devourers, it had been wielded by the mighty Goliathan warriors, beings whose smallest soldiers stood 15 feet tall and possessed exoskeletons that could withstand plasma bombardment. Yet as Lyra's human hands found their grip, something unexpected happened. The bow began to resonate, not with the crude power of the Goliathans, but with something more nuanced. Her species' greatest strength had never been raw, physical capability. It was adaptability, the ability to find solutions where others saw only impossibilities. "The arrows," she said, turning to the adjacent display. 3 crystalline shafts lay in individual stasis fields, each one humming with enough contained energy to crack a moon. Thax moved to block her path. "Child, listen to reason. The draw, weight required to launch those arrows, would liquefy your internal organs. Even if by some miracle you could pull the string, the recoil would—" The first Devourer probe ships emerged from hyperspace at that moment, their arrival announced by the base's proximity alarms. Through the archive's transparent walls, they could see the nightmare fleet materializing against the stars, organic vessels that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, each one the size of a human city. Lyra took the first arrow. The moment it touched her skin, she understood. The weapon wasn't just a bow, it was a focusing array for quantum energy manipulation. The Goliathans had used it like a club, overwhelming their targets with brute force. But humans could be precise. She knocked the arrow and stepped onto the archive's observation platform. The bow fought her, its alien design protesting her grip. But she persisted. Instead of trying to match the raw strength of its previous wielders, she found the weapon's resonant frequency, aligning her own bioelectric field with its quantum matrix. The string began to yield. "Impossible," Thax whispered. The Devourer fleet spread across the system like a plague, their bioships already beginning to harvest the outer planets. Each vessel was shielded by layers of adaptive armor that had proven immune to every weapon in the Alliance arsenal. Lyra drew the string, back inch by agonizing inch. Her muscles screamed, her bones creaked, and she tasted blood where her teeth had cut into her lip. But humanity's greatest gift wasn't strength. It was the stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The bow sang as it reached full draw, reality bending around the arrow's crystalline point. Through the weapon's quantum sensors, Lyra could see the Devourer's weakness, a resonance point in their bioship's neural networks that the ancients had embedded as a failsafe. She aimed not at the largest ship, but at the smallest probe vessel at the fleet's edge. "For Earth," she whispered, and released. The arrow moved faster than light itself, tunneling through folded space to strike its target. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the probe ship began to convulse, its bioluminescent patterns shifting from predatory hunger to confusion, then to something that looked almost like fear. The neural feedback cascaded through the Devourer fleet's collective consciousness like a virus. Ship after ship began to writhe in apparent agony before vanishing back into hyperspace, fleeing from a threat they couldn't comprehend. Lyra collapsed to her knees, the bow clattering beside her. Thakex caught her before she could fall completely, his scales now shifting to a color she'd never seen before. What she realized must be awe. "How?" he asked. She looked up at him with eyes that held the exhaustion of her entire species. "The bow was forged for beasts," she said. "But sometimes, you need something more than a beast to win a war. Sometimes you need someone who refuses to give up, no matter how impossible the odds." As the last Devourer ship disappeared into the void, alarms fell silent across the system. In the archive around them, holographic displays began updating with reports from across the galaxy. The enemy fleet was retreating on all fronts, their collective mind apparently traumatized by an attack they had never imagined possible. Humanity had found a way, as it always did. The bow lay silent now, its purpose fulfilled by hands it was never meant to hold.